Hey guys, this is Michelle Kardokis. I am the host of the Noble Cause podcast. If you have been following me for any amount of time, you'll know that I haven't recorded anything for a while. You'll probably also notice that my studio has changed. I have moved to Victor, Colorado, where I help manage the Gray Wolf Resort, which is a agriculture tourism resort with my boyfriend Nate, and it's been a great experience. So it's a lot of change to get used to. I know that in the last year with the pandemic and everything, it's kind of shaken up a lot of people. So I'm not the only one that's gone through some change. However, I started this podcast because I started it during some transition in my life. And I'm always searching for ways to be better and for ways to heal and for ways to kind of put the pieces together to encourage growth. And when I overcome certain things or have breakthroughs, I seem to find a process that helps me, and I always feel like if I'm going through stuff that other people, I must not be the only one. And I have a lot of teachers and a lot of people that I listen to, and I appreciate their wisdom. And so I feel like that's my contribution, is that maybe if one person could listen to what I've done to help me, that it might help them. So that's really my motivation for doing the Noble Cause podcast. Also, all of the topics that I try to cover, I try to, present this teaching in a way that I feel is timeless and in a way that is very relatable, just for being human and the human condition and things that we go through. And so the way that I choose to contribute is kind of putting myself on, the hot seat, and being vulnerable enough to express some of the issues that come up in my personal life. I have a lot of respect for people such as Dr. Brene Brown. She does a lot of work talking about vulnerability, and I appreciate that a lot. And even though it's hard to put yourself out there, it's hard to admit that we have problems, it's hard to admit that we're not perfect, but at the end of the day, I think that the more we can have the courage to show up for ourselves and show up for wherever we are, no matter where that is, so like whatever stage of life we're in, that's meant for us. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a way that we could support each other, because we're all going through stuff. I don't care who you are, it's like if you live a perfect life and nothing ever happens to you, I don't know how human you are, really, because it seems like it's very fundamental to living life on this planet. So with that being said, there's a topic that I'd like to bring up today, and it has to do with self-sabotage and also being externally focused. So the reason why this came up for me is, there's lots of different things going on energetically in our world, in the universe, in our everyday relationships and everything. So I think that whenever things are presenting itself, it's because we're meant to work through them. And so I've discovered in my life different times that self-sabotage has come up. And so with that being said, there's a few different authors that have really helped me embrace that instead of trying to avoid it or wish it away, I guess. Steven Pressfield's a great example. He really talks about, he has a book called Turning Pro, and it's really about like not making excuses anymore and being aware of your self-sabotage and being aware of, whenever you're being externally focused, that has a lot to do with self-sabotage, which I'll kind of connect the dots a little bit through this episode. But So the first thing that came up for me, I would have to say, is in conversations with people. I listen to a lot of teachings that talk about our limiting beliefs, and in the way that if something comes up, if somebody says something that triggers you or that makes you mad or pisses you off, that is an expression of your own limiting beliefs. And I don't want to get too into depth with this because you don't have to believe it. It's not something necessarily that you can prove. However, for me, all that I can say for myself is that recognizing my limiting beliefs gives me the opportunity to process them, and then gives me the opportunity to heal from them and to move forward. Or if I can't necessarily move forward from that, then kind of integrate it into who I am and understanding that that's my own personal limiting beliefs. And the reason why that's so important for me is because if somebody says something to me that's triggering and I understand what my limiting beliefs are, I have the opportunity to choose for myself to not make it a thing. You know, say, oh, that's my own psychology from my life experiences, from what triggers me, and I choose to not shame or blame somebody else. I choose not to tell them they should be different to make me feel better, essentially, is what we're talking about. So it's not necessarily that something that you can prove, but it's something that can help you in your personal growth. So, me processing through some of my limiting beliefs, this particular situation started off because I feel deeply for my fellow humans. I really try not to blame or shame people and try to be more understanding and compassionate. And so even in the sense of, you know, for instance, like I grew up, my dad was gay whenever I was growing up. And so people made fun of me, treated me different. So I'm very sensitive to that. I also, both of my parents were disabled, have mental disabilities and physical disabilities. So making fun of people because of their disabilities, that triggers me. And then health-wise, my mother was, even though she's a very healthy person, has, due to trauma and medications and stuff like that, has struggled with being overweight. So the judgment of, you know, you see somebody that's overweight, that they're fat and lazy and don't contribute and all this. So those are my biggest triggers, all right? And so whenever anybody talks about other people in a negative way, I get personally offended. But the reason why I have to realize that is because that's my limiting beliefs, is because I feel like somebody else should think different. I feel like they should treat people different, and I don't feel like it's right for them to think of people that way. And I could be right, you know. There could be definitely grounds to that. However, me having a rebuttal that is unnecessary, me projecting and shaming and blaming somebody else for their beliefs, is essentially doing the exact same thing that these people are. So I have to be really aware of that. So one thing that I wanted to talk about, because I think that it's really important and it's so prevalent in our society right now, is being externally focused. What that means is being focused on everything outside of you but your own self. This is a huge thing right now, you know, especially with the mask mandates and with the pandemic and the coronavirus and the vaccines and everything like that. It really does encourage people to be worrying about other people instead of being worried about themselves. And, you know, I don't care to get into the details about that. I believe in freedom of health and freedom of choice for whatever works for you. However, I personally have the belief, whether it's a limiting belief or not, I personally have the belief that if you're focusing more on what people think about you and how you're doing things that may or may not be socially acceptable right now, then you're missing the opportunity to work on yourself. And so every time that we're focusing on things outside of ourself, we take away from our own self. So that's where the externally focused thing comes from. So to kind of connect the dots a little bit, I did this process where I had to write out and understand where my self-sabotage came from, recognizing whether it's self-sabotage or something else. And I think that that's a personal thing, but I think that it all kind of goes together. I think that it has to do with being externally focused, understanding your limiting beliefs, and then also understanding how self-sabotage shows up for you in your life. And whenever I talk about self-sabotage, I'm talking about, you could be going along, just fine in your life, crushing your goals, doing the things that you have set out to achieve. And then one day, whatever it is, you let something take you out. Whether it's a belief, whether it's what somebody else said, whether it's you having a bad day or being in a bad mood or things not working out as planned, whatever it is, because we all have our own things, right? So that's what I mean by self-sabotage, is you getting in your own way. And what's interesting about that is that it's so easy for us to project that, and it's so easy for us to blame other people for our own self-sabotage. And that's the real, that is the tricky part about self-sabotage, is that in a way it convinces you that it's somebody else's fault. And it convinces you that you are actually a victim and that you can't do anything about it and blah, 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 all this bullcrap. But at the end of the day, is that true? Or is that you making excuses? Is that you allowing things not being perfect, which they never will be, to get in the way of you still continuing on reaching your goals and being the best version of yourself? So that's how self-sabotage can show up in our life. So I'm going to read this thing that I worked through. So this is straight up me processing things and getting to the core. So in my process, I have to write for a while. The first thing I have to write about is what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling this way, why I'm being triggered, where does it come from? And then just try to go layers deep until I get to the core of the problem. And so my biggest thing, one of my biggest things, is feeling out of control. This, for me personally, it comes from having trauma and tragedy in my life that was outside of my control, as a child, having so many things externally influencing me, that whenever I feel out of control, I have this very strong fight or flight response, to where I either become controlling myself, trying to overcompensate to control the situation, trying to really grab a hold to control, or I put up walls and I cut things off and I totally disengage. And so I recognize that within myself, and it's something that I'm working on and that I want to be better at. So I kind of connect the dots with being externally focused and feeling out of control. So what I wrote was, whenever I am externally focused, I feel out of control, leading me to be controlling. I fear that I am not strong enough to choose the right thing, so I need everything else around me to change for me, to make it easier for me to choose the right thing, right? I am judgmental, thinking everyone needs to get on my righteous train because I want to do the right thing. I doubt that I actually can, and so I need everybody else to agree with me and get on my righteous train so that it'll be easier for me to do the right thing. Am I the only one? Maybe. Who knows? So I need everyone else to get on my righteous train. I fear that we will all go down if I don't hold it up. Controlling. I don't trust anyone else to drive the train, or even their own train for that matter, which equals being controlling. And the fact of the matter is, this is not who I want to be. So, I'm not saying this to beat myself up, because I think that this is a super healthy process to go through to understanding where my triggers are, and how that shows up in my life, because I think that it's really easy for us, especially whenever we're externally focused, and especially whenever we are encouraged to be externally focused, that's how it feeds into our self-sabotage without us being conscious or aware of that. So one thing that I want to say about being externally focused that I think is really important that we consider is that whenever we are judging others, being externally focused, judging others or judging the environment or judging how things are, the most important thing is acceptance. And I go through this a lot because people confuse acceptance with approval. Just because you accept things for how they are does not mean that you approve how they are. Those are two different things. But accepting things for it is what it is. That person over there is choosing a crappy lifestyle. This person over here is choosing to do things that you don't think that are right. Accept it. It's happening. It is happening. The next thing is to understand that every single one of us, I truly believe, have our own path and have our own learning. And, I've covered this in other episodes because we have to understand that not only is it not fair, but I don't think that it's right to get so involved in other people's learning process. Who are you? Who am I to judge somebody else? Whatever they're going through, they could be hitting rock bottom right now, and that could be exactly what they need to get themselves out of it. Because ultimately, we only have ourselves. It's us that has to get ourselves out. We can't rely on other people. We can't be enabled by other people. And I think that it's important that we also don't enable others as well. That we encourage each other to take our own control of our own lives and of our own selves. Another thing about being externally focused is that whenever you're spending so much time thinking about other people, that's less time you're thinking about yourselves. And I would have to say that every single one of us has work that we can do on ourselves, no matter what it is. And so every time we're externally focused, it's a projection and it's a reflection of what we need to work on in ourselves. And it takes some time, to go through these processes because we don't always understand, wait, what in the world? It's like, I see somebody that's an alcoholic. I am pissed off that they're an alcoholic. How is that a projection of me? It's like, okay, well, let's process your limiting beliefs. Let's process how, looking externally to something is taking away from you looking at yourself. And we might find some answers there. But like I said, I think that we all have work to do on ourselves, and that's very important that we do that and that we take the time for ourselves. So, being aware of the self-sabotage, I am always like tough love, hard ass whenever it comes to things. Because I do it to myself, The reason why it's important for me to process through things is because I want to say to myself, you know what, Michelle? You know what you're doing. You're making excuses and you're focusing on things outside of yourself instead of yourself. So my biggest thing is that I really do care about being a good example, regardless of what anybody else is doing, because I don't think that that's the way. I think that the more I can choose to do the right thing based on my own personal virtues, the less I need the world to agree with me, and the more I can stand on my truth. And so if I find myself in a position to where I'm like, I'm needing things around me to be easier because I don't feel like I'm strong enough to do the right thing when everybody else isn't doing the right thing, or it feels that way. And I have to be super aware of that because I want to be stronger than that. I want to show my children that it's okay for, that's integrity. It's okay for you to choose the right thing regardless of what anybody else is doing, and especially whenever everybody else seems to be doing something different. In this day and age, the more that I learn about what's going on, the more I don't want to be like everybody else, and the more that I want to be true to myself. And if I'm going to wait around and make excuses for the whole world needing to be on my righteous train before I make the right decision or make the right choice or choose to be that example, then I'm just being weak sauce. I'm not truly being that, that courageous leader, that example of integrity and the values that mean a lot to me, to be loving and to be compassionate, to be healthy and to be inspiring and to be loving and helpful, and just all of those things that really matter a lot to me. If I'm waiting for the world to reflect that, if I'm waiting for the world to be nice to me because I don't feel like I'm strong enough to be nice to it in spite of it, then that's what I need to work on. I need to work on my strength. I need to work on that from the inside. So I encourage everybody, including myself, it's like, be aware of your limiting thoughts. Be aware of those limiting beliefs. Be aware of your judgments. Be aware of your projections, and be aware of how self-sabotage and external focus shows up in your life. And it's easy to question, well, how do we know? How do I know if this is happening? And as silly as it sounds, I believe that our emotions is what tells us. When we have negative emotions, and by negative, I mean fear-based is what I mean. When we have fear-based emotions that comes up, that's something we need to process through. It's not something, and we're led to believe that it's somebody doing that to us. It's somebody else doing that to us. Well, if it's coming up within you and your body, then it's for you to deal with, okay? So those emotions that are based on fear, those are really what we're working with. Those are the things that we need to process through. And those are the things that once we unlock that and once we process through, and even just simply understanding why we are the way that we are, we might say, oh, because I was raised a certain way, I actually have these limiting beliefs, and I see how it aids to my self-sabotage. And so now that I'm aware of that, whenever I'm moving forward in my life and things come up unexpected, I can choose to say, you know what, I'm not going to let that take me out. I'm not going to let that be the excuse for why I'm going to give up. Or at the very least, whenever we do slip up, we can come back and say, I've already committed that I don't want to be that type of person. So I need to either apologize, or I need to make things right, or I need to, however I can, to still be that example, even though we're not perfect. So I encourage myself to do that, and I encourage, others as well. So the last part of this that I have to say is because I go through all of these processes, and it really helps me. And at the end of it, I have things, I try to come up with mantras or come up with things that will help me move forward, And so mantras is a big one. And then I'm going to go through a thing that a friend of mine sent me. So for me personally, I'll just share with you what my mantra is. And I started doing this for myself. It's actually been a huge process. It might sound a little silly, but these things really help us psychologically and emotionally, it could really, really benefit. So I have 3 things. My first thing is that I am safe. So what I do is I put my hand on my heart because I'm telling myself these things. I want it to sink in. So I am safe, meaning that even whenever I feel out of control, I don't have to be controlling. That's what I am safe means. And the next thing is I am free. And why that's important to me is because even though I have limiting beliefs, I never want to feel limited. So me saying I am free allows me, opens me up, expands me enough to make the right decision. And then the last part is I believe in me. And the reason why I say I believe in me is because at the end of the day, I want to make the best decisions. I want to do good. I want to be good. And I want to enjoy the ride. And so I have to believe that I can do that. I believe in me that even when things are difficult, I can make the right decisions. I believe in me that I can stay true to my values and my virtues regardless of what's going around externally. I believe that even through my self-sabotage, I can carry on and still choose to progress and to grow and to become better. So I am safe, I am free, I believe in me. So that's my mantra. And holy crap, like, I've started doing that every single time I get anxious, every single time I get upset or triggered or whatever it is, whenever those fear emotions come up, I just stop, because the biggest thing is that I believe in me, because like, it reminds me that I don't have to wait for everything in the world to be perfect for me to do the right thing. Okay? Like, believe in yourself. Don't make excuses for why you can't do the right thing. You control you. You control the words that you say. You control how you treat people. You control how you choose to think of other people, you know? And you can control the way that you think about yourself. So I believe in me is like a super helpful mantra. And the last thing that I have to share with you guys, this is from, he's a Facebook friend of mine. His name's Jason Estes, and he is a co-founder of MTVO, Masters of the Void organization. It does all kinds of like really cool high vibe spiritual work and whatnot. So if you're up for anything like that, I suggest finding him on Facebook or on the net. But he did this, he did this little post, and this is about like healing yourself, and as we would call like the lineages of your lives. So, and I wouldn't get too caught up in this. You don't necessarily have to believe in reincarnation to say these things. What it's saying is that you can reclaim your power back from anything that's ever happened to you, is what this means. And so he puts in blank spaces that you can fill things in. So this one says, remembering unity. I now call forward all aspects of my being that blank, from all places, spaces, times, and dimensions. So for me, my blank that I put in there was feeling unsafe. And then I also did another one that was feeling controlling or feeling out of control. So what this sounds like is, I now call forward all aspects of my being that feels unsafe, from all places, spaces, times, and dimensions. With love, acceptance, and no judgment, I integrate you into the wholeness of the fulfillment I am that I am. And the last part is, from this place of fulfillment, I choose to blank. And for me, my fill-in was, from this place of fulfillment, I choose to be free. Because that's my biggest thing. I feel like once I'm free, I am no longer limited, and I am free to be my greatest, grandest version of myself and do all the awesome things and be the awesome person that I strive to be. So, this is a good practice. I do this and I feel like it just like solidifies like all the work that I've done. You know, like I'm like bringing my power back. I'm integrating what I've learned. I understand that there's probably been, you know, many times in my life, or maybe even other lifetimes, that I have felt this way, and that it's not just right now, it's connected, it's intertwined in things. So integrating that part and choosing to be free in spite of it, to me, it just really aids to expansion. So with that being said, I hope that maybe this might have helped somebody somewhere. I can't help but think that it does help, because you know, before 2020, and I was doing my podcast on a regular basis, and I was going through, you know, different transitional periods, but before the whole world got shaken up, I know that I was talking about some things that absolutely, you know, like a couple people, they've reached out to me like, thank you, you know, for sharing, and it kind of helped me process through my own things, and that's great. But now it's like on an even grander scale. And I think it's important for us to recognize that we are all going through things and all processing through things. This is like the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest time in human history. And the more that we process this through our limiting beliefs, the more that we challenge what is acceptable and normal based on external factors, as opposed to our own truth and our own values and our own virtues, then the more we can integrate that into our daily living. And that's whenever we get to live a life that is valuable based on what matters to us, and not just what's acceptable to our society or what we are told we should be doing. And I think that the opportunity for every individual to have that time for themselves and to go through that process with themselves, I believe that that is just, the means for monumental change in a very positive way. So I hope that, everybody has their own opportunity. Please take time for yourself. Take time to look at yourself. Like I said, we all have things that we have to work on. So try not to be so externally focused all the time. Be aware of that self-sabotage and hold yourself accountable. I'm doing it. Please, if I ever do something that, hey, Michelle, I know you, and that doesn't seem like that's something that you would say or do, or, I don't think that was really an integrity, I think it's important to hold each other accountable, because I can't tell you how many times that people have said or done things that have been very hurtful, and they come back around and guess what? They apologize. And they say, I've looked at myself and realized that that wasn't the right way for me to have treated you or to have acted. So I think it's a great thing to hold each other accountable, hold ourselves accountable, but not use that as an excuse to be externally focused. So with that being said, much love to you all. I look forward to doing more of these episodes. I'm getting a little bit more settled here in Victor, and we're building a tiny house, and we have a farm and a resort and like so much stuff going on. I just started the Colorado Agriculture Leadership Program, which I'm going to start fundraising for that, for my tuition for that. So there's lots of fun stuff going on. This is all related. This is all part of it. And I'm just really excited for the future. So please stay tuned for the next one, and thanks for your time. Much love.